It can't stop the day we dissect the news. Flipping on the edge, choices to choose. Politics and laughter, a blend that's so real. Shooting for the stories that make you feel. With guests from every angle, let's bridge the divide. Finding the truth in the humor we can't hide.
Good. All right, we're recording, so whenever
We're
you'd
back.
like to,
We're back.
would you like to chatty chat? I forgot to do this last time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to do this. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Prime Directive. I'm Eric,
Admar.
Liesl.
and we have an awesome guest with us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jay.
Oh, he's Jay. Great. No, we really are glad to have you here because we're going to be talking movies.
Not just, but we have.
Movies.
I'll do a little more formal intro. And I've been crashing. Those of you watching know I've been crashing a few episodes, and I'm not one of the normal hosts. This is the Prime Directive with Eric and Admar, not with Liesl, but I have been crashing a few because I've been having some of my colleagues as guests. This is the Heroes of Higher Ed tour, and Jay is with us today, and he is. His background is so incredibly interesting, but his bio involves doing media. He's in our digital film area, concentration of the comm department. And his bio includes, he studied in China for several years, and his bio includes doing work for Volkswagen and is it Toyota? But several companies.
I don't know if I did anything for Toyota, but a lot of car companies, when I was in China, like the car companies, especially the German car companies, were just going gangbusters with their advertising. So there was I think my last years in Beijing, like half my work was for German auto companies.
Lots of advertising work in films. And he also studied in China, speaks Chinese and Mandarin, did you say? Or
Mandarin and Cantonese. I lived in Hong Kong a long time ago as well.
So lots of really interesting stories. And what I really want to talk about too, and pick his brain for lots of personal reasons, is that he took a group of students over to China. And that was just this incredible experience for these young people to go over with him. So he's done that already and just doing some really incredible things in the department. So I want him to have a chance to tell his story, tell a lot about what he's doing in the department. We're just so lucky to have him. Mm-hmm. And I've had such a neat experience just kind of getting to know him and want to get to know you even better, get to know a lot more about you. So that's why we are so lucky that you said yes when I extended an invitation.
Thank you.
And another hero of higher ed with us today.
Yes.
So that's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do. And so here's our spiel. Would you like to read it this week?
Oh, why?
Go for it.
Why would I ever say no to that? Well, guests, welcome to the Prime Directive, a podcast with a bold mission to explore this strange new world by discussing a range of topics of interest to us. Mm-hmm. We ask that you join us and listen with an open mind and look with your human eyes to thoughtfully interact and share your thoughts. We are seeking life forms willing to engage in respectful discourse, and we put the civil back in civilization.
And we also have to clear this up at the beginning of all of our episodes. We love you, Gene Roddenberry, but this has nothing to do with your Prime Directive and Star Trek. Okay? But we love you. Oh man, we love you. Love that vision and all this.
You did inspire us. I mean, we're not going to lie. You inspired us.
Yeah,
but it's not a straight across ripoff.
No, never.
We would never,
ever do a ripoff.
Never ever.
No. Although we've watched every episode of every show, it would never ever be a ripoff.
So Jay,
I'm gonna have to know. Can I ask the first question?
Please do.
I've got to get this out. Like, is that a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle iPad cover?
Well, yes. How'd you know that?
I'm on the right podcast. Okay. I'll clear that up.
Yes, and of course it's a childproof, shatterproof one that I have to have for the child that still teaches 6th graders.
Yes, marketed to children.
I have to have it because I've broken 5 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, wow,
you are in the episode on that. Actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You're in the right place.
Yes, you are. So let's start off here. So I lately, I would say within the past 3 years, probably since kind of the tail end of the pandemic, I personally have kind of gone on a journey of exploration into the philosophies of the East. Ooh. And I have I started down this path with the Tao Te Ching and have gone full circle into Zhuangzi, and I've headed into Alan Watts and some of his theories. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy. He was a lecturer in the 70s in Berkeley and stuff.
I know him, but I don't know his theories.
Yeah, he passed away years ago, decades ago, but his lectures still live on in the interwebs and whatnot. But you have actually lived. You have gone to the East and lived amongst the majority of the Earth, right? The majority of humanity lives in the eastern hemispheres of this planet and whatnot. What can you tell us as for anybody who's watching this podcast, what can you tell us in your journey? What knowledge have you gained? What insights or wisdoms have you noticed that could be useful, could be something to help somebody find their a prime directive in their life? What have you come across that you would say, hey, this is what Americans should be doing and into, and or anybody from the West, who might not be familiar with the East? You've lived it. Your wife is Chinese, is that right? Is she Chinese?
She's ethnically Mongolian, but her nationality is Chinese.
Okay, so but the exactly. East, it exudes your journey in life. And so I when I was talking with Liesl about this, like, who should we have on next and talk about? Because we've had Janice, Dr. Thorpe, and she's sailed around the earth, which is incredible. And her husband downplays it, her husband.
Yeah, it's like we're going to go down to the grocery store and pick up some groceries, and then we're just going to get on our yacht and
50 foot sailboat.
Yeah, sailboat. And all we're going to do is just go through North Atlantic.
He said it's pretty common. Hundreds of people do it.
Yeah, hundreds. You can count them on all your digits. Yeah. That's amazing. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyhow, but anyway, I was like, let's have Jay on because he's lived this.
Well, he also should tell just his background, what brought him over there and all that.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We're throwing a lot at you.
I know. We are. Do you need some more wine?
So what took me over there? I grew up in the 80s and Japan was all over the news. They were taking over the world. I'm like, in third grade, I got the very first original Nintendo system, Nintendo NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, and everyone, that was the biggest thing ever for kids my age. All out of Japan, huge Japanese influence. And then, oddly enough, I think in fourth grade, I got into origami, the folding of the paper. And I got really into buying the nice, sexy, exquisite paper and I had all these books on how to do I was making complicated things that take, 50 pieces of paper kind of merged together into a small castle with a moat and things like that. It's just really fascinating, but it was very odd because I'm a kid growing up in, suburban Houston. No Asian kids in my school, not many, and definitely no Japanese school. So no contact with this culture. It's just, so my mom can never figure out, there's 4 kids in my family and none of my siblings had any interest. But I was the odd duckling who just loved, I was fixated on Japan. And yet I had no access to anything. There's no Japanese classes even in high school. There was just very little information about Japan growing up, and we didn't have the internet. But every time I did an independent kind of research project, which I had quite a few of, starting in elementary school, probably the first one I did was 3rd, 4th grade, I always did it on something related to Japan. So it's kind of always there. It was a personal interest. It wasn't anything I got out of my classes. And so it was always there, but it was always on the periphery. And then I get to undergrad. I went to Rice University, very small school, but they had this amazing exchange program with a university in Japan, and only 5 schools in the US were on this exchange that paid all expenses.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Because there's no way I would have been able to afford to just take a year off. I was studying engineering. It wasn't an engineering program. So I wasn't getting any credits towards my degree.
I saw that. Is it mechanical?
Mechanical.
That's
I didn't know that was your undergrad. Wow.
Yeah, very circuitous route to get to
for
filmmaking.
Sure.
But I was good at math and science. I went to a public high school, in Texas, and we didn't have much career counseling or things like that. And at the time, I was still am really into cars. I was like, I'll be an automotive engineer. Why not?
Yeah.
Never ended up happening, but that was the major. But I was a freshman, saw this opportunity, and I jumped on it. Went abroad after my freshman year and lived for a whole year in Japan. The second half of the stay, for about 6-7 months, I lived with a Japanese family, full time. I was the only one in the program who ended up, everyone got a homestay, but they'd only go once a month on a weekend or something. My homestay family just said the first time I met with them, hey, if you want, you could come live with us.
Wow.
It was quite a bike ride to get to campus and back. They were on the other side of town. I was like, hell
and
yes.
this is before e-bikes, right? You actually had to pedal.
Yeah.
You had to push
actually had to pedal. I wish I saw that. It was a great bike. I just bought a used bike from another foreigner there. It was just advertising on whatever. I think we didn't have the internet, so I think it was just advertised at the international. They had an international room or something in one of the big high rises downtown.
So what was the college there?
I was at Kyushu University. So Kyushu is the southernmost of the 4 major islands in Japan. And I was in Fukuoka, which is the 5th largest city in Japan. And they just had this, it's called Japan in Today's World. And they had, the exchange was with, I think, 1 or 2 Korean universities, a few in Europe. So there were some Belgians and a German guy in the group, and then 5 universities in the US. I don't remember all the universities, but at any rate, it was a full year program. They paid everything. I took over I think $500 just in case.
I don't want to get us off track, but I have to ask, how was that funded? Do you know?
I do. Monbusho is the Ministry of Education in Japan, and Japan, the economy was booming in the 80s and 90s, and they were really smart. They said, hey, we're in the news everywhere. Like, people are talking about us. We're getting a lot of attention because our economy is booming, and we're this small island, but we're really on the national stage, the international stage. But really, how do we do more? It's one thing to just be, but grab people's attention, but how do you actually get them to understand, and how do you make a positive impact and make a positive impression, a good first impression, especially after the wartime history and all that.
Oh yeah.
And so the Ministry of Education was giving these amazing scholarships, paying for people to come get their PhDs, masters,
So was this specific to engineering, because of the gaming industry and things like that?
No engineering. That's the thing. It wasn't engineering at all. So I was basically taking a year off, which I couldn't have afforded to do, and except that it was all paid for.
Oh my God, that's so amazing. That's just not happening now.
Yeah, not much. But Monbusho still gives some scholarships. I don't think they're quite as many as there used to be, but in 97, they were still...
They were, because when in the late 90s, early 2000s, my scholarship when I studied abroad was through Fiat.
Interesting.
So Fiat paid, and I was a comm major.
Yeah.
So you're right. I don't... I'm getting off track. But I just don't see those things, because the problems we've had trying to launch our study abroad. I just don't. Yeah. Maybe we're not looking in the right place, but I'm getting us off track. So you go.
Well, here's the thing. Back in the 90s, especially, no one was studying abroad. We had maybe 30, 40 students a year studying abroad. Granted, Rice is a smaller school, but none of my friends that I went to high school with, they went off to college and they were really accomplished. They were top students. All that. None of them went abroad. It wasn't that common. It was expensive. You couldn't do it. There weren't that many programs. But if you were going to go abroad, where were you going to go as an American student? Everyone would go to Europe. And, and here I am, nerdy white kid from Houston, and never left Houston at that point. And, studying engineering, not a common field to go abroad anyway. And I applied for that. And then I got several more scholarships to go abroad to Asia. Well, I started abroad in Asia 4 times as an undergrad, an engineering undergrad. None of those trips had anything to do with engineering.
Oh, interesting.
So basically, and I got another scholarship to go to Hong Kong for a year later and did the trip in Taiwan, but that was all paid for.
See, so you found great success in going against the grain. You didn't do what every other kid, engineering students, off to MIT, off to the traditional engineering kind of.
Or doing internships in the summer. Instead, I was hopping over to Taiwan and, hey, I love learning Japanese. I'll learn some Chinese, right?
You took a chance. I didn't
think of it like that at the time. That was my interest. All my classmates were getting internships, and at Halliburton and all the big.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
KBR,
Lockheed Martin.
Houston's an incredible place. It's a working city, but there's tons of jobs there, tons of jobs.
Sure.
So they were. Lots of my classmates were coming out getting 6 figures starting.
Yeah.
It was back in the 90s, and
in the 90s, 6 figures starting.
Yeah.
That buys a lot of beer. Yeah.
Well, that was my brother. My brother's an engineer, and he graduated from mines, and he's in that mechanical engineering.
Oh yeah.
And he was he didn't even need a master's, right out of his bachelor's.
You come out of school like mines, and it's just there's lots.
The world is your oyster.
Well, and here we are in 2025, and school teachers still don't make six figures. No. So, as you were going through your K-12 experience, was there any particular teacher that guided you this way, or was it just it was media?
It was
media
just this passion for Asia.
It was just Japan specifically. Really, it was Japan that I was focused on growing up. I think it's, there was an interest in East Asia as an extension of my interest in Japan, but it didn't really blossom until I went to Japan. A bunch of my classmates were from Korea and China, and that really got me even more interested once I experienced Japan. And I was just like, I want to keep going back. And I love Japan, but I want to see a little bit more. So the next summer was Taiwan. They eventually got to mainland China, went to Hong Kong, eventually got to mainland China. But basically, I studied abroad 5 or 6 times total.
And is that where you met your wife then? Or
No, we met in Hawaii.
You met in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're from exact opposite ends of the world. And, I'm from Texas, kind of the Wild West of the U.S. She's from Xinjiang, the Wild West of China. And we met geographically and culturally smack dab in the middle of our 2 locations and cultures, in Hawaii in the middle. And she's, interesting fact, my wife is from Urumqi, which is the furthest city, major city, not town or little thing, but furthest major city from an ocean in the world. It's the most landlocked city in the world, basically. Wow. And we met in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's meant to be. I mean, what I'm saying? That's weird.
She would say it wasn't at all at first, but
who's this goof nut? That was same with Liesl. The first time we kind of met, it was.
I remember y'all's story. That's a fun one.
I used to have a mullet and a long ponytail and stuff. Oh my god,
it did the trick.
Yeah. No, that's crazy.
Wow.
I thought Mandarin was the one that it's got over 300. Is that right? Am I off base on this?
Well, with Chinese, any of the dialects, they have it's a tonal language, and that's difficult for people from non-tonal languages, especially. I mean, for anyone really. But each tone, you can have a lot of homophones where it's the same ma 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 ma, and each one has a different meaning.
Bear 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 222. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But so many more than English has, right?
Okay.
Because everything's monosyllabic.
Interesting.
And so, but Cantonese has more tones than Mandarin. I'd say that's kind of maybe the harder part about it. Okay. And probably some of those sounds are a little, I'd say for an native English speaker, I found some of the sounds in Cantonese a little harder, and just Southern Asian, East Asian, and like Southeast Asian languages, the tonal languages, I feel like some of the sounds, Vietnamese especially, a lot of those sounds are just a little more foreign, a little more out of what we're used to doing with our tongues in English.
So maybe just something as simple as the prime directive. How would that translate? The prime directive. Okay, say that one more time.
That's how I would. Yeah, just off. I mean, there's a lot of technical jargon in there, but.
Say one more time.
主要, like the prime.
主要.
The 目标 is like directive or purpose or goal.
主要目标.
目标.
目标.
Right.
主要目標.
Yeah. All right.
You got it. Good job. Well done.
And they're probably on the other side of the world. They're going, "What a clown!"
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, how do our languages? Do they intersect at all? I mean, we're obviously human, so yes, obviously concepts and things like that are going to be similar, but. Right, the language drives the way that you even think, and English is so. I've taught it for over 20 years now to 6th graders.
Yeah,
English is so noun. We are just a noun dominant, driven. Everything is a thing. A person, place, a thing, an idea. I mean, we are just. Even our emotions, we make them. You pull them out of your heart and your love. Look at that. And we're just the westernized mind is just so driven around objects and the tactile, touchable, scientific, cold, hard, almost like, empiricist type background I sense that in the Eastern traditions, it isn't just quite the same. Am I off base thinking like that?
I mean, I guess it really depends on kind of what aspect of life you're looking at. But all these concepts you just threw out, they're by no means foreign. Like if you went back 200 years before the internet and globalization and all that, some of them maybe like you wouldn't see as big of an emphasis, or they would have a very different concept of, the same word, but they would have some sort of concept on it. Nowadays, you have to realize, like, any part of East Asia you go to, even if you're out in the boonies, they've seen thousands of Hollywood movies. They've seen, they listen to tons of Western music, movies. I mean, the last few hundred years, they've, give you an example, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, the three places and languages I'm familiar with, they all have so many loan words from the West and specifically from English. Japanese is interesting because they also have, you can tell when the loan words approximately came in, they still have some words used regularly from Portuguese because they were the first ones to go in because Japan was closed off for a long time, right?
I watched Shogun, I remember.
So exactly. The Portuguese were there. So there were loan words from that. And they have a whole alphabet just for loan words.
Interesting.
Yeah, a whole alphabet. Like, our 26 letters, they've got a whole 40-something. Katakana is specifically just for writing foreign loan words. And they have so many of them. You see katakana everywhere. It's like in the middle of a sentence with their hiragana, like their standard vocabulary, and then with the Chinese characters, kanji. So
that's amazing.
But nowadays, most of the loan words are from English, but you see it in all three of those languages and cultures. So East Asia, the whole world really, but East Asia, specifically the area I'm most familiar with, I mean, all of these concepts would not be foreign to them at all.
It's a blending. We truly are one. We truly are global.
We're globalized.
We're a globalized
I mean, we really
society
are.
Now.
Especially our generation and younger. I mean, you can still meet older people who maybe haven't seen as, haven't been influenced as much and never really got on the internet or anything like that. Obviously, their lives have still been impacted by globalization, but they may not have they may still have a more traditional East Asian view of things and not have quite as much contact with Western ideas. But still, most of the concepts that we have about important things are more or less, like you said, we're all human. We all have the same needs. We all want, a ceiling over our heads, food to eat, and, love.
Sure.
Right? And happiness.
What is the word for love? And is it different? It's because I know, like for the Greeks, right, they've got multiple layers of eros, pathos, logos. There was various types of concepts of love. Well, English, it's just one boring word, right? And
it's a pretty word. I'll argue that.
Yeah.
Like love, I think that's a really
love. Four letters. Yeah. I don't know. I wish we were more complex in that concept. We seem to have a lot of words for war, for conflicts, right? But that's one that we don't seem to have. What is it? I cut you off. I didn't.
In Mandarin and Japanese, it's the same, although in Mandarin there's a tone on it. Japanese, there's no tone, so it's I. AI. Interesting. AI, right? If you Romanize it, there's
everything.
If you Romanize it, but there is a Chinese character, so they're not going to write it out as AI.
Wait till you tell her.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. They're not writing it. They're writing a Chinese character that has a heart in it. Actually, the character for heart is part of love. But actually, interesting thing, they took that out in the simplified Mandarin. Mainland China simplified characters once the communists came into power. So they used what are called simplified characters, and the character for love took out the heart. But anyway, the same character in Cantonese is actually pronounced Ngoy in Cantonese. And then in Korean, it would be Sarang.
Sarang.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they don't, so that one's, I'm guessing, a native Korean word that didn't. So just so y'all know, over half of the vocabulary, at least in a dictionary, in Korean and Japanese, is from Chinese. And the reason that happened, in a nutshell, is there were 3 waves of Buddhism that traveled from China through Korea, the Korean peninsula, to Japan. And with those 3 waves of Buddhism, Chinese characters were transmitted and a whole lot of vocabulary as well. Now, Korea and Japan already had languages, words, vocabulary for stuff. So a lot of the words were still native words, but then a lot of, especially for new concepts and things, new concepts back in the 8th and 11th century, whenever it was, those things they maybe didn't have a word for yet. They used the Chinese word, but pronounced it in their way. But that's why you see something like I in Mandarin is actually still pronounced the same in Japanese because they use the same character.
I.
So usually the pronunciation will be a little different, but you can see parallels. And certain words that are pronounced a certain way in Mandarin, or I found in Cantonese, because Cantonese is actually a much older language than Mandarin, I find a lot more similarities where I know the character. So you see a word that's pronounced one way in that language, and then another word that's pronounced the same way, a homophone, and it's actually pronounced this, even though it's different in Korean or Japanese, it'll be pronounced the same way. So I can actually guess a lot of times if I know the characters and I know the vocabulary from Chinese. My Korean vocabulary is very small, but a lot of times I can kind of guess, like, because I know that's a word in Chinese. That's so amazing. It's really interesting. And the way you make nouns, especially, you combine characters are monosyllabic in Chinese. They have one meaning, but you combine two together and they made a new thing. And then they made new words like that. And some of them, here's the interesting thing. The Japanese, before they started just taking the words directly from the language and making a phonetic kind of loan word, they would make new words, especially before World War II and the Meiji Restoration in the late 1800s, mid 1900s. They would combine characters, and then those would actually get transmitted back to China. So one example, dian in Chinese means electric. Hua is to talk. So dianhua, electric talk, telephone. But that was actually denwa, and in Japanese, listen to the similarities, denwa, right? Dianhua. So very similar. So the Japanese are the ones that stuck that together, and then it actually filtered back over. Actually, in Korea adopted as well, though they have a different word now for phone. But anyway, back to China. So China uses that word. So anyway, it's really interesting how
language is a living thing. It's a living thing. It changes, it grows, it expands, It contracts sometimes, but it seems to encompass and evolve and
share between languages that are in completely different language groups. So that's the fascinating thing to me.
So I wonder, there is a prime directive. There it is.
Yeah.
Communication evolving over time, leading to a better understanding of what somebody is talking about from another place.
Well, it's also interesting how it sometimes fails to do so, because with America being the baby, the world's baby.
The world's biggest baby.
Yeah, the world's biggest baby.
The world's biggest, most powerful baby.
We haven't adopted certain things that are from our parents, because the Brits say things that we just don't, we don't use this. We don't call an elevator a lift, or, we don't.
Well, and bloody isn't a cuss word for us. And for them,
no, we never, that never caught on. And we don't call the bathroom a loo. And there's
flat for an apartment.
Right.
Yes, we don't.
Yep. For the boot for the trunk.
Yeah, we don't. So
or it's not.
I don't know if those are more modern.
They say the military.
Those,
it's like the
military. But I wonder if those are more modern, replacements that we just didn't. That came after.
I do have a bone to pick, though. It's called aluminium, not aluminum.
Aluminum.
Read it properly. That's what it's meant to be. Thank you. Aluminium.
Yeah.
But so what in your journey, where did the turn from engineering to digital film take place? What path led you there?
So I grew up in a very creative family. My mom's a musician, a very talented musician. Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Plays a lot of instruments, but most of the piano is her main instrument. She's been a piano teacher. She started a professional children's theater and ran that for 10 years in Houston. And she accompanies off-Broadway shows. She's uber talented, and I took piano from for a while, but she's also kind of like me as a teacher, very serious, very strict, expects a lot of our students. Like, if you're going to take lessons with me, if you're going to take my classes, do your work, practice, show up, bring your A game. And, that worked when I was in elementary school. You get to middle school, and then there's soccer and girls and all these other priorities.
Girls.
Hence the mullet.
Yeah, piano just isn't quite as important or quite as cool.
Yeah.
And I quit, and I hate that I did that. But then I kind of lost that creative outlet of music. And I still did creative stuff in high school, but I didn't have the main thing I was focused on. And in college, I got into photography. No photography classes again. I was just straight engineering classes. But I just self-taught, learned it on my own, and I was going abroad, and I just wanted to take pictures everywhere. In fact, when I went to Japan, 19 years old, I bought the very first consumer digital camera that Sony made. So it was 1997. It was 640 by 480 pixels, and I paid $800 for that thing. It had 4 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes of internal memory. There were no SD cards or anything. SD cards weren't even around then, but no media cards. You could take up to in low quality, you could get maybe 80 pictures in there, and then you had to download them to your computer.
Yeah.
But I was interested. I hadn't had any background in photography, but I was like, I want to take as many pictures as possible. And I was always like an early adopter. So I bought this camera, and 5-10 years later, you had cell phones with way better resolution than that were way cheaper, but $800 for pictures that would be about this big on our modern monitors.
Yeah, we literally just got Liesl a new phone. It's 4K video streaming. That's in gigabytes now, and now there's plans.
So that was
terabytes.
one of the first digital cameras.
It was Sony's first consumer digital camera.
Okay.
I mean, there had been some that were more experimental, but that was the very first one they offered as a consumer product.
Okay.
Did
you have that one?
No, I was just trying to remember which one. I had an early one too, but when we got married, I got one because I remember I did a presentation in school about it.
Was it a Minolta?
No, it was
silver and black. Was it a Canon?
I think. But it was
another early one where the cards were like.
No, but it was not that early.
But
it was.
Yeah, a few generations after mine, or like a year or two after mine, Sony had one that actually used 3.25-inch floppy disk to record media on, because there wasn't a standardized like small media card yet that was out.
Yeah.
So this is early days.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. But to answer your question, I just started that camera got me into photography. Everyone in my dorm, like when I got back from Japan, even a year later, I was still the first one with a digital camera.
Yeah.
At school, and like everyone was always coming to me, hey, I need a picture for this and this or whatever. Can you take a picture? It was the coolest thing ever. Nowadays I'd be like, what? Pull out your phone, right? But no one had digital cameras. If you needed something fast, that was the way to go. But that was limiting because there were no manual controls or anything. So I started to like learn more about photography and invested in a film camera. So really my first proper camera, manual control camera, was a film camera. So I started digital, but moved to film a little bit backwards. But that was the only way I could get a high-end camera with interchangeable lenses on it. Anyway, I got really into photography. And then when I studied abroad in Hong Kong in 2000, I started watching, I don't know why I did it. Probably just a little bored, where I just started going and buying DVDs, or back then it was VCD, actually. They were precursors to DVDs, but still on round discs like DVDs. I started watching a bunch of Hong Kong art house cinema. So like Wong Kar-wai is the most famous director out of that bunch, Fruit Chan, and just a lot of those other directors. And it was eye-opening. I was like, this is nothing like the movies, because my dad was a big movie now. He loved movies, but it was like Bill Murray comedies and all that we grew up with.
Caddyshack.
Oh yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that was like standard fare in our household. And so I started watching these art house cinema scenes, and it just opened I was just like, wow. And in addition to photography, I loved writing. And it just clicked while I was there. I had this epiphany, like, wow, I love writing, I love photography. Filmmaking seems like that perfect combination. Tell a story visually. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is cool. I'd love to pursue it more. I wasn't like, this is what I want to do with my life, but I went back to Rice. There was no film program really. Right. I think I was able, like my last semester, to take one class, and it was documentary, and it was pretty basic. So we shot me and this partner, we shot one documentary film, and she edited it. So it was super basic. I don't feel like I learned that much about
What was the name of it? What was the documentary called? What was it?
The Ink Spot, I think, or something like that. Actually, that's interesting you ask, because it was the name of a tattoo parlor. We went and did a documentary on these tattoo artists. I don't remember much about the documentary, like the final product. I remember being in there, and this guy who just gotten out of jail, ex-con, comes in, and he had a tattoo that was very shoddily done in prison, and he wanted it expanded. And the tattoo artist, I think he was an ex-con too, like he was long-haired hippie dude, but like in his 60s or 70s. And he, like, the ex-con came in and he was ripped. You could tell he hit the gym a lot in prison. And like, they did not get along from the get-go, but like the older guy was not scared at all. This guy's probably like 30 and he's in prime shape. Mm-hmm. But he's like, man, you disrespect me and I'm going to beat your ass. Or, it was crazy. Like, it got really tense in there. We're sitting there with our cameras and we never made a film before. We're like turning the camera off, and it's like, that's the prime stuff to shoot.
Yeah, right. No, it is.
But
anyway,
it's WWF.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up. I'd totally forgotten about that. But anyway, I hadn't really gotten a chance to do film. Went off and spent another year in Japan, and then got the scholarship to go get a master's degree at the University of Hawaii. Again, all expenses paid. So I just found these. I applied to a lot of stuff. It's not like I got everything I applied for.
This is like incredible.
I got a lot. I did a lot of stuff because I just applied to a whole lot of things, and most of the stuff I didn't get. But I just applied. Every scholarship opportunity that looked interesting and had something to do with Asia, I was on it. And so I got my master's degree paid for, and I went and studied
This is great advice, everybody out there. Great advice.
Just always apply. And the more scholarships you apply for, the better you get at it.
That's right.
And the more scholarships you get, the better that looks on your resume. Like, hey, I had these two organizations giving me a whole lot of money. Like, you should too.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So when I went to Hawaii, my second semester there, they opened a new film school. And I jumped on the opportunity. So I ended up putting more time and effort into these film classes that didn't count at all towards my Asian studies master's degree, and like loved it. But by the end of that very first class, the intro class that I took, the very first class they offered there, I was sold. Like, this is what I want to do with my life.
Not to mention you're in Hawaii.
I mean, well, that makes it harder to study because you just want to go out and hit the beach. Like, it's an ideal place you think to live and all that, but actually for studying, it's very distracting. But actually, not nearly as distracting as what our students are all dealing with now.
This
yes,
thing, and this thing.
Oh,
yes.
This has come up on the podcast, especially with these two when they do. Oh. It's just. Yeah.
We actually, at middle school level, we actually ban them now. So they have yonder pouches, and so it has to stay in your yonder pouch. If we see it, we take it. And it goes to the office and stuff. But yeah, no, with any luck, knock on wood here, I think we've turned the corner on that one. I think most parents, most educators are now like, this is in the classroom. This is not. You do not bring it in. You do not have it here. If you do, I'll give you one warning, and then if I see it again, that's mine. Yeah. That's mine.
Yeah, no, but that's. Once you have parent buy-in, like that's so much. It's so much easier to like make.
And we have the data now to showing like what, especially with young people, it's powerful, and it can mess kids up if they see things too early.
I remember in early days, I used to have an article that I'd put up on Canvas in classes, sharing with students data about the distractions of technology use, in the classroom, and I would say like. The temptation to shop on online shopping sites while you're in the classroom is too intense, and I would put things or play solitaire, and I would put all these stats that at the time. Now this was early 2000s and things like that. I put all these stats for the temptations that students would face if they were not paying attention in lecture, but surfing the net and things on their laptops or on their phones. And I had all these things that they risked missing if they were doing other things in class, and the statistics on the percentages of what they retain or what they lose. I had all that, like, this is really going to be effective in scaring them not to do these things. Right, right. I was so naive.
Yeah, no, we didn't really kind of know what was coming. I remember falling in love with Japanese animation when I was a kid. There was a cartoon called Robotech that came on every morning at 6 a.m. And so before I headed off to middle school, which back then was called junior high school, I would catch an episode of Rick Hunter and the Macross Squadron going to war against the Zentradi and the space epic war battle thing. And I remember at the time being like, there is nothing like this in America. Meanwhile, like in America, I remember seeing like heavy metal, like cartoon heavy metal, which was kind of like Frank Frazetta kind of artistic stuff. And, but it just wasn't the same. The Japanese animation and manga and all that stuff just seems light years ahead of where like American animation and cinematronics were kind of at. And the way they designed like their mechas, I'm like, this is like military grade designs. These are incredible. Yeah. Gundam Wing, 3x3 Eyes, Wicked City. God, I had a collection of. There was a place in the Citadel Mall, which used to be pretty good. Now Citadel Mall is kind of sketch, but it was called Dungeons and Dragons back then, and I must have spent $10,000 even as a kid of my own hard-earned money of just. Getting VHS tapes. So we had the VHS tapes and stuff of just all kinds of, early kawaii, kind of like cutesy character things and stuff. And it's still with me. Even now, like I think about like my own mannerisms and stuff, my hand gestures and stuff. I wonder how much of that I got off of watching and imitating these artists and stuff.
Close the chapter, lend us your ear. Prime Directive's calling, so let's pass that beer. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflecting.